Hey guys, we are here. We are really excited today. We are featuring an interview with Cloyd Steiger. He is a retired Seattle detective. Cloyd Steiger. Retired Seattle detective for 36 years, and 22 of those years was homicide, right?
That's right.
And he's joining us today to talk and really give us some insight into the Bryan Kohberger case, the Idaho murder case, which a lot of people are talking about right now. So we thought it would be good to bring in someone who's got 22 years of experience, can give us a behind the scenes look of really what the police are doing, and kind of your thoughts on the way things are being handled. I personally think they're being handled pretty well. What's your initial take on that, Cloyd?
Well, yeah, it's been handled much better than you would expect from such a small department. But they did this smart thing early. They realized they were over their heads and they called for help. And that's the most important thing, rather than trudging on and messing it up.
And screwing up and missing evidence. And
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got a list of questions here that we think a lot of people are going to be interested in hearing your take on. So the first one is, when you think about this case, what stands out the most to you in terms of the work the police had to do? Is there any specific evidence you think stands out and gives the police a really good leg to stand on?
Well, I mean, yeah, there's several. First of all, of course, the knife sheath that was found there,
Right.
and they found it's presumably his DNA on the snap of that sheath. I'll bet they have other DNA, maybe from victims' fingernails, clippings, and things like that. The video evidence from the neighbors of that car in the neighborhood all the time, and then
Yeah.
of course the cell phone tracking, which he turned his cell phone off or didn't bring it the night he killed them.
Right.
But he left it every time he stalked them before that, which was really stupid.
Yeah.
And so
That's very interesting.
pretty, and he could be convicted on the DNA alone, but all the
Really?
other stuff is, just.
Is it your assumption that the police have quite a bit more, even compelling evidence like DNA that they haven't released that's not public yet?
Right. All they have to do when they write an affidavit of probable cause is establish probable cause. They don't have to lay their entire case out, and I'm sure they didn't. They just have to get enough to get them charged and get them held, get them extradited back to Idaho, and they've done that. I'm sure there's other evidence that is very compelling that has not been released in the affidavits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This is a personal, very curious question of mine. I think I have my ideas, but do you think Bryan Kohberger acted alone in this crime?
Yeah, I do. I think because he's kind of a loner anyway.
Right.
I don't see it as. I mean, I did hear a question that was kind of curious when he said, "Am I the only one under arrest?"
Right.
Which makes you wonder. Yeah, but I mean, they don't have any evidence of other people in the area and all the other stuff so far as I know.
Sure.
I mean, like I said, they could have evidence of. If they have evidence of another person, they haven't established probable cause. They're not going to release it yet.
So they theoretically, as a police officer, if you're doing if you're doing work on a case like this, and you might suspect there could be, based on some evidence, another person, but you haven't established that probable cause yet. You can't make that arrest, even though you're still working that behind the scenes.
Right. You have to have compelling probable cause enough to have a judge sign off on it. So you wouldn't even mention it, the affidavit of this. Yeah.
Okay. So that's very interesting. And then a follow-up question to that is that Allie also had was,
do you think he intended to murder all four people, or do you think that turn of events happened in the case where he either lost it and carried on, or he had to because they saw? Or, I mean, do you think it was his intent, I guess?
That's hard to say if it was his intent to kill all four people. Did he know all four people were there? Probably. Or he knew most of them were there. He didn't kill the two people, even though one of them saw him. So I don't know. I don't know. Only he knows the answer to that. He had these grandiose plans, I'm sure, and I don't know. Sounds like he targeted the Kaylee girl the most, just from what I've heard in the rumors. I don't have any specific information.
Right.
So it was probably about her to begin with, but for whatever reason, he killed others. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and you've obviously worked on a lot of homicides in your 22-year career in homicide. When you look at a guy like Kohberger, is there anything that stands out about his personality, or what we know about his personality, his mannerisms, some of his actions leading up or after the crime that um, would be something that catches your eye when you're looking at a suspect early on?
Yeah, well, of course, before you identify him, you don't know. But once you have a person of interest, you look into him, and the guy, he was an odd duck. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
He thought he knew enough to get away with it, I believe, unless some people are speculating he intentionally left the knife sheath there, which is kind of odd.
That is.
My friend who's a psychiatrist who's been discussing this case with me back and forth, he thinks this guy could be on the Asperger's spectrum, and that may be it's kind of those kind of personality traits. He certainly is a narcissist. He thinks he's smarter than everybody. He thought he was smarter than the police, but it ends up he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and going back to that sheath that you mentioned, being smarter than the police, do you think that's something that, I mean, you wouldn't leave something like that at a crime scene, would you?
Well, you wouldn't intentionally, although, like I said in the previous interview, it's like plans for a battle. You have all these well-worn plans, and once it all starts, everything goes out the window because it's chaos, and he wasn't ready for the chaos. And so if he had that sheath, he probably had that sheath off of his belt and just holding it in his hand, which was stupid to begin with. And then he left it there. He laid it down, and in the panic and all of the chaos, fled the scene without his sheath, which was huge in this case. Like I said, there's probably other DNA evidence that they found, but that's the one they're using for the probable cause.
Sure.
And I guess in terms of motive, when you're a police officer, you're obviously looking for motive when you're doing a case like this. Do you have any speculation on what his motive could be, or do you see crimes often that are just almost void of motive?
Well, I see crimes all the time, or saw murders all the time that were just stupid and over nothing. There's always a motive somewhere. The police don't have to show a motive, though, to get the guy successfully prosecuted. They just have to show that he did it. But you do want to know the motive. And my speculation would be an obsession with one of the girls, and for whatever reason, and then he planned this out, and it got out of hand.
Mm. Something that's really been curious to me is, what do you think of his actions after the murders?
I'd be willing to bet he had always planned to go back to Pennsylvania for Christmas, although it's weird that he drove
so far.
Flew, all across the country instead of just flew both ways. Maybe he wanted that car out of the Pullman Moscow area, and then the traffic stops sound like they were done at the request of the FBI who was following him because they wanted video camera of him. But his actions in sticking around and going to class and acting differently, some people said he acted almost giddy after the murders, which is odd. And then I read something yesterday, I think, that he was in class and was always talkative and included in the conversation until they started talking about this murder, and he just shut up. So those are odd things. I think it's because he thought he was smart enough and would get away with it. Mm-hmm. He thought he's smarter than everybody. I'm a PhD candidate in criminology, and so I know how to do this. No, you don't. I read a lot of books, but never actually did it.
Yeah.
That leads me to another question: is do you believe that he has committed crimes of this magnitude, or even smaller crimes, but still violent crimes in the past?
I don't necessarily believe that he has murdered anybody else in the past. Okay. He may have stalked people. He may have done prowler things. That's the kind of things I'd look for. That's more likely that he's a prowler, a peeper, and that type of thing. But I really seriously doubt he's done anything of this magnitude.
That makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. So bad at this one. He got caught on that one too.
Yeah. When you're a police officer and you have a guy early on, do you think, like in this case, they were trailing him for quite a while? Do you think what I guess, in your opinion, what do you think the police were doing from the onset?
Well, once they established him as a possible suspect, first of all, they only had suspicion. So I don't think they'd have put all their eggs in one basket and follow him around or anything. They can put him under. There are things that we. Bless you. There are things that we use.
Sorry.
Pole cameras, where you set up a camera on a utility pole that's in a box, you can't see it, and you point it, and you can monitor somebody from anywhere on an internet connection. And they may have done that. I don't know if they have that because I always think about, I had a lot of assets in a city like Seattle. I don't think Moscow probably does, but the FBI probably did, and could have put up poll cameras where he lives and watched him coming and going. And then, it sounds like campus police did a good job at WSU of giving information. So that's the kind of stuff I think they did.
And you think they pooled all these resources because they're a small department and they needed, the additional resources in order to really get that arrest affidavit completed for a judge to sign.
Yeah. And again, with this psychiatrist I've been talking to continuously since this crime happened, one of the things we openly discussed is this guy could be a WSU student since it's so close, so they should get the campus police there involved and looking for things like the white car once that came out, and it's what they did.
Yeah.
I mean, in my eyes, I think 6 weeks to gather all of us and do all of this successfully, this without leaking this information and, keeping things so tight, I think that's really quite a decent timeline. Are you thinking the same thing, or is that kind of
absolutely
normal?
For a crime of this magnitude? Of course, you can't compare this to other crimes because all their assets, all their resources were full-time on this, right? And some other crimes are, I have one detective who's working 10 different cases, right? And that depends on, but this is not one of those. This is everybody's concentrating it, all hands on deck. And 6 weeks is actually wonderful. It's a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel that way too, based on just waking up one morning and seeing that there's a suspect arrested, a week or two ago now. But leading up to that, was there any point where you thought the police have nothing and they're just searching for anything, or they have a guy, or was your thinking that they might have a guy and they're just gathering evidence? How did you view that leading up to the arrest?
Well, I didn't have any information that they had a suspect in mind, and so I don't. But I knew that there was a lot going on. Early on, I said to some people, they give too much information in this case. They're releasing too much information.
Oh, really?
Because that stuff you want to keep, early on.
Sure.
And it ends up that the stuff they needed to keep quiet, they did keep quiet, which is very heartening. But I in a messy case like this, I knew there'd be DNA. Okay, there'd be DNA somewhere because it's just too hard to do this. First of all, with stabbing that many people, you might cut yourself if the knife slips. You have You have people fighting back, scraping at you, and you have fingernail scrapings. But it takes a while to go through all that and then run it. And then once you have a DNA, which they had in this case, you put it in CODIS, which is the National DNA Data Bank, and there's nothing there. This person isn't in CODIS. So then you have to go to Plan B. Well, how do we get it? So once you've established the Plan B, they figured out who the father was. They did the trash raid on his stuff. And basically what they did in that is they did reverse paternity, whereas they can show that the killer is the biological son of that man. So that, and then this guy's in Idaho, WSU, and he's clear across in Pennsylvania. And if he's got other sons, they're probably back there too. So that's pretty strong evidence that this is your guy. And now that they have him in custody, I'm sure they've swabbed his cheeks. They'll do a one-on-one comparison of the DNA and get the huge numbers that we usually get on these type of cases.
Yeah. One question that is maybe a little outside the box, and it's a lot of our viewers, we've talked about this in a recent live with them. A lot of them seem to think that there might be something weird or a little bit sticky with the roommate who saw him. This roommate, I believe it was Dylan, who saw him 3 times and kind of came face to face with him and could kind of describe him. Do you think there's anything sketchy or anything interesting into that, or do you think that we don't know the whole story, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do think we don't know the whole story, and this guy, seeing this guy in the middle of the night, a lot of people come and go in this house, and you think everybody. I would have called the police right away.
Yeah,
right. Who knows? And first of all, what was this guy's sobriety like? Right. He'd been out drinking, drunk on his butt, and then just fell back in bed because it was hours later before he got up.
Yeah.
So it is odd. I've heard people say, "Why wouldn't you call the police if you got a stranger in the house and you hear all this stuff?" But again, people come and go in that house a lot. Mm-hmm. Might have been really drunk, I don't know, and not be thinking clearly. And so I don't put a whole lot of. And people reacted to psychological trauma differently.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I don't I don't think he was involved or anything like that.
Yeah.
So when you were doing investigations, did you ever see any behavior similar to this where you just, as a police officer, and I guess as the general public, you're questioning why would you ever react that way? But
Yeah.
fear can do a lot of things to people.
Yeah, and I bring them in and question them that way, and then I have to satisfy my own feelings that they're not involved. They just did something either stupid or
Just doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
That happens. A lot of things don't make much sense when you're dealing with murders.
So last couple questions here. Going forward, now that we've got a suspect, we've seen the arrest affidavit. I guess I got two questions. First, why do you think the court stopped the house from being kind of given back to the owners, cleaned, and why are the police just now taking the mattresses out and kind of, I guess, reprocessing or further processing? Is there any reasoning behind that you can gather?
Well, in a case like this, it's a pretty significant case, which may end up being a death penalty case, and you have to let the defense get in there. And
I see.
Maybe have their experts look at the place,
Okay.
and then that's why the court ordered it. And the other is they had it locked down, so don't need to get the stuff out. They have stuff to do. Again, they have limited people, and then they're John. That's not a big deal. But they certainly should not release his house until in a case like this. You want to wait. Again, give the defense a chance to go in and look around. If they want to bring their experts in, let them bring their experts in to make everything above board and on the table. And then,
kind of final question: What do you? Is there anything you're going to be looking for going forward that might not be kind of obvious to the public, like police work that you might expect them to do, or just anything leading up to a trial in order to get a conviction that is gives the family some peace of mind and a guilty conviction?
Well, people think that once the arrest is made, it's over with. That's just the beginning. You have to. I had a case once. There was a potential death penalty case, so we made the arrest, and I worked on that case almost full time for 5 more years until it went to trial. And because it took 5 years to get to trial, because there's just so much they want to do, and all this, you got to cross all the T's and dot all the I's and look into behavioral stuff. I think my best guess will be this would be an NGI plea, not guilty by reason of insanity. I don't think that'll fly. But when it's basically what I call the squid defense. When you're faced with overwhelming odds, you squirt ink in the water and try to swim away in the confusion. And that's
a good analogy.
Yeah, that's all they have. I don't think they have anything else at this point. But I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of the case, but I'll bet you it's a lot stronger than just the affidavit shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I guess only one last question that we have for you is that, in your eyes, do you think that they have the right guy behind bars right now? Do you think it was Kohberger?
Yeah, DNA doesn't lie.
Yeah.
2 things DNA does: it absolutely convicts the guilty, and also absolutely acquits the innocent.
Okay.
And follow up to that, how important is the murder weapon or bloody clothes, anything like that?
Yeah, if they got his DNA, they got him. It's financial stuff.
Yeah. Sorry, just cut out a little bit. Start from the top.
Finding the murder weapon is great, but I've done a lot of murders without the weapon. Finding bloody clothing is great. I've done a lot of murder convictions without the bloody clothing. But the totality of circumstantial evidence beside the DNA is very overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. So we found you through your website, Cloyd Steiger. Did I say that correctly?
That's right. CloydSteiger.com is my website.
CloydSteiger.com. You've written multiple books, one of them on a Seattle serial killer that we're actually going to check out when we get back home come this spring, because I think that could be a really interesting case to share with people. I kind of glanced at it when I was researching you. You do a lot of podcasts. Where can people find you? And where can people learn more about what you do?
Well, like I said, my website is CloydSteiger.com. I do many podcasts. I'm on several YouTube videos. And I'm just around. I've got a lot of stuff going on.
You're a true crime. You're a retired homicide. Now you've kind of making a name for yourself, helping people understand true crime.
Yeah, that kind of happened by accident. I didn't really set out to do this, but people started asking me this stuff, and I had a lot of. I was involved in a national cold case group. I was the director of investigations consulting for the American Investigative Society of Cold Cases. So I met a lot of people around the country by that. And now I speak at conferences sometimes. I was just in Savannah, Georgia in September speaking at a true crime conference, not a police conference, but for true crime fans.
Yeah.
That happens every year. And then I'd teach at some homicide schools around the country, and I just you just can't get away with it. Excuse me.
It's
can't
a
get
big
away from it. Yeah.
It's a big genre, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of crime.
Well, thanks for your time, Cloyd.
Yes, thank you very much. Very interesting and very feels like really good to hear. I don't know, somebody with your experiences, thoughts on everything. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it.
Take
All
care.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.